Welcome to another episode of The Nation. Today we delve into the important subject of organization well-being and mental health. Now, while we may not find all the solutions in our 26-minute discussion, my aim is to keep this conversation alive and ongoing. Now, many media outlets periodically cover this topic, recognizing its significance. Today's episode is a contribution to that continuity. My guest has a PhD in social science and mental health. She's also the founder of Yayasan Health on World. Dr. Sangeeta Kaur joins us. Dr. Sangeeta, thank you very much for taking time to be with us. And it's a very important thing that we need to talk about once again because it's an ongoing conversation, like I said before, and we want to keep this conversation ongoing until it falls on ears so people take action. Now, how do we know? I'd like to start with this. How do we know if we have mental health issues or problems before we get into the thick of this being in an organization?
Okay, thank you, Gerard, and hello, Malaysia. All right, how do we know if we have issues and all that, right? So there's many factors to it because when we talk about mental health, there's no one sign or symptoms that will tell you belong in whether it's depression or anxiety, okay? So if we experience some sort of, behavior or attitude that disrupt our normal, functioning, or we are not up to the level of our optimum function, then it's time to, ring a bell that I need to talk to someone. Okay?
But it's interesting you say that optimum function because some of us go through life. We get into our working lives from school to college to adulthood to work and so on. And we forget about what optimum level is. Now, when you speak to people as a licensed counselor and also in the other, all the different work you do, when you speak to people, do you notice that when you ask people, do you know what you are at optimum level? Do they know what to tell you? No.
No, they are so... Yeah. In a way, I can say from my perception is like they play so many roles. And this role, they will cross boundaries. And they think that if I am being an employee or I'm in the office, I need to bring that back home, right? And then when we talk about optimum level, we are all different. You need to address that. I mean, your optimum level and mine will be different.
Right.
Because due to our, values, upbringing, our resilience, right? How do we manage stress, sadness, anger? It's all different. So we cannot say that everyone is the same, but there's a difference, during our upbringing that we carry to, how long our life journey is. And when we talk about optimum level, it's where you are able to do your best. It's when you are able to perform, okay? That means you enjoy doing the work. You are able to have fun. You are able to, engage, communicate. Sometimes you will have this like anger or frustrated over certain things, but you're able to manage that. And that's important.
Right. When I got in touch with you and said, "Look, we want to do a program on this," you said you specifically want to talk about the stigma around people with mental illness, people who cannot work, and people who have violent episodes, or it's stated in their OKU card. I didn't quite get what you meant. Can you explain that to us?
Okay, there's a lot of stigma around mental health. Okay, so we need to address all of us have mental health, just like physical health, right? We can process information, we store information in our brain, and whether it's a good memories or a bad memories, it will surface, right? Because your brain not going to tell you, hello, wake up, I'm gonna surface. It's not like that. So when we talk about mental health, all of us have mental health, which is good, because no mental health means something wrong with you, okay? And we all have mental health challenges. Mental health challenges, as I say, financial challenges. Sometimes you have issues with family.
Can financial challenge be recognized as a mental health challenge?
If it's prolonged, someone who compulsive in shopping, even though they know they have financial problems, right? They unable to pay whatever that they purchase. It's all on credit. And then coping mechanism is through shopping.
Right.
So this coping mechanism is a negative coping mechanism because I have no money, but to release myself, I'm going to go and shop. And that will increase your financial anxiety. right? Because it's increasing, and it will relate to mental health challenges. So we need to make sure that mental health challenges we go through financial, relationship, personal, right? And another one is mental illness. When people go under this mental illness, you need to seek psychiatric treatment.
Right, so this is the stigma you want to talk about. Yeah.
Yes, right? Because even in OKU card, right, they will put their mental.
In the OKU card?
In the OKU card, yes.
So what's stated there is mental.
Mental.
That means you're off your head. Okay.
Right, so we need to change that. All right? So the moment we change that, then it will be easier and the stigma around it will be lesser. All right, by creating more awareness. And doesn't mean people who have mental illness are violent. Doesn't mean people who have mental illness unable to work, okay? Or they are aggressive. No. Sometimes people with no OKU, mental OKU, they're still aggressive.
So,
right? So we need to address that. And to tell you frankly, people who take their medication, even though they have mental OKU card, they are still able to perform.
But don't you think with it being stated on their OKU card that they are mental, is that the stigma, or should that you think that should be removed from the card?
Maybe they need to do more research on what better word to put in. All right. And another thing that when someone go through or seek psychiatrist, when they have all this emotion, overwhelm, and from moderate to severe symptoms, right? They don't want to go and see psychiatrists. With the stigma, if I go, it will be in the system. Therefore, no one wants to employ me. And they will blame me according to my illness.
Yeah, but that's happening the world over, isn't it? If anyone knows you have a history of mental illness, that will impede the process of you getting a job. And that's a stigma that's been there for a long time. And we still, although we say we're modern men, we still find it hard to accept. Oh my goodness, I'm going to be employing someone who's 10 cents short of a dollar. But I mean, that brings us to the workplace. Now, what we're going to do is take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about the workplace and how employers can take care of not only their staff's mental health, but their own mental health. We'll come back with that shortly. We're speaking to Dr. Sangeeta Kaur right here on The Nation, Bernama TV. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us right here on The Nation. Jared Ratnam with you. We're speaking to Dr. Sangeeta Kaur about mental well-being. And we've talked about this every time or every so often people talk about it. But we need to keep that message going. Now we want to talk about mental health at workplace. Sometimes you get mad bosses, sometimes you get mad workers. Now, let's get into the crux of this. Now, I know the lockdown has sort of impeded or exacerbated whatever we have now as a situation in mental health care. The great lockdown has made things worse, and we're seeing the tail end of it. We see a lot of toxicity in organizations, whether it's a government or the civil service or in the private sector. Now, let's start with mental health of management and how important that is to run an organization or building.
It's very important when we talk about the leaders, the management need to understand about mental health, right? Because remember earlier we spoke about the stigma, being mental, people think you are crazy, you need to go to an institution and all this stuff. By addressing that or looking into areas where when we talk about mental health, we need to practice it, all right? And the higher you are in the management, okay, the more stress you get, right? For example, just say like a business owner. People think, or employee thinks that they need or they should know everything. If an employer knows everything, why do they hire you to do the work, right? This is to have, check and balance, and to give employer or leaders information that will develop the organization further. Right. So by applying mental health awareness, by trying to neutralizing or reducing the gap, this is where the management needs to take a big role.
Right. So when you talk about management implementing or bringing about more awareness with mental health, are there any processes that you can introduce into a system or an organization to be able to make sure you have a checklist of things to do?
Okay. Few things that they can do. First is start having, educate themselves first. As simple as what is mental health, what is mental illness, right? What are the risks, the symptoms? Because you remember, everyone can have different symptoms and different risks, right? And then have conversation. Okay? Another thing that you can do have pre and post survey. Okay, when you have pre and post survey, we do a lot of survey on happiness at workplace and all these things. So we can also have questions on mental health.
But you need to be honest about doing something like this. Take for example now, in America, you've got companies who hire psychologists, who hire, say, counselors to sit in there and talk to people every day. You see someone not performing, hey, come into the office, let's talk, let's see what your problem is, get him or her back on track and send them back out. Are we at that level?
Not yet.
Not yet. Huh?
Not yet. Still
sad.
Not yet.
It's
Even
really sad.
when we talk about OSHA, right, Occupational Safety and Health Act, it's clearly stated, the well-being of the employer and employee. When we talk about physiological and psychological, but all this while is always about physical. It's about you need to have the cup in the proper place. The wire can't simply, everywhere and all this. But no one actually look into the well-being, the psychological part, the psychosocial part of the employee. And accident happens at workplace, right? For example, we just take like manufacturing company and all that. We have machines. Machines takes order from human, right? If you on, the machine will go off, how long, how, what you need to produce, what the numbers and all that. And then when it's done, you just shut it up. But why do we still have accidents? So people, when they have issues, they can be present, but their mind is somewhere else.
So you can be physically present, but you're not all there because you're far and away, and you forget about your work, and mistakes can happen that way. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, lost limbs, fingers, or while driving or managing certain things, it will happen.
So just running machinery, like stuff like this too. Anything can happen. So that's why this is very important.
Very important. So we need to start. We need to be, from top to bottom. We need to address mental health and make it as neutral as possible. I know we still all have bias. You cannot run away from biasness, right? But we are able to manage, be more mindful, be aware that certain things are not the same for others.
So you're talking about, I think when you talk a lot about what happens in factories and things. People have to be mentally sound in order to be able to run machines, mentally free, so you can focus a little bit more, things like that. Now, I guess, that being said, I'm sure you've heard of things that happen in corporate Malaysia. People get burnt out. There's things that you know about now, like adrenal fatigue, people just running on empty. What is corporate Malaysia doing about this? And we're going to get into SMEs in a short while too,
Okay. If you look at it, when we talk about corporations, MNC is actually addressing, they have employee-assisted programs where, you can engage a counsellor to conduct sessions with the employee and also the family members. So it's part of employee benefit, right? because that's how they want to.
So I mean,
Yes.
so sorry for interjecting,
No,
but
no, no
you know,
worries.
getting a counselor and people, do we have the know-how or the subject matter experts to actually go into companies and say, okay, this is your company's problem, this is the philosophy of your company which is impeding or hampering your staff or your management? Do we have people who can do that here in Malaysia?
Okay, we do have counsellors, right? Those who are licensed under the Board of Counsellors Malaysia.
Yeah.
We have around 7,000 of them, right? And this is another part what I am doing is I'm working with National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health so that these basic skills in addressing, employee, how do you create a conversation? How do you address certain issues at workplace to be part of occupational safety and health?
Right.
So this is how we need to address, right? If you're an organization who have OSH coordinator.
An OSH coordinator. For
Yes.
those of us who don't know what an OSH coordinator is, what's that?
Okay, OSH coordinator is like occupational safety and health. If you have more than 50 employees, 50, yeah, around there, you need to have someone to manage the safety and health of the organization.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So with this, because we have we have first aid. If someone drop, how do you bandage?
We
How do you
have
do?
civil defense, we have first aid, we have stuff like that.
Yes.
But I mean, emergencies with regards to mental health, we don't have yet.
Yes. So
you
this
know.
is how.
At best, everyone has a counselor. Okay, come into the room, sit down. You ni saya tengok macam tak pandai kerja lah. You know, apa masalah you? No, we get stuff like that. Yeah, but how do we move away from stuff like that? Someone who can actually dive down into the person's problem and say, yeah, okay, this is the problem. Tell the person what to do and advise the HR what to do next. I think these things are very important.
Very important, right? Okay, by addressing issues, it can be just to issues can be many different issues, right? And when we address all this, okay, we need to understand that how do we communicate with the employee? Okay, non-judgmental,
Right.
okay, and try to be as neutral as possible.
You have to be non-judgmental, especially if you're in a position to be
Yes.
able to look at everything, look at the employee's problem, or look at what is happening.
Correct.
And
Yes.
what's the second one? Non-judgmental and
Neutral.
neutral. Non-judgmental and neutrality. That is the most important things, or the two most basic fundamentals
Yes.
in dealing with this. Now,
Yes.
I think what we want to do is talk about SMEs now. I mean, SME is a sizable part of our economy, and they're apparently the growth engine of Malaysia. Now, how are SMEs doing with regards to this? We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to look at SMEs and the different kinds of business and how they promote mental health despite limited resources and budgets. A lot of companies are apparently doing well in that area. We'll come back and talk about that right here on The Nation. Stay with us.
Yo, kampung kita ni kotor lah tu.
Saya pun sudah sakit perut ni tu.
Aku kata kita ramai-ramai, gotong royong bersihkan kawasan kita ni.
Welcome back to The Nation. We're currently talking about mental health problems at work and how we can deal with it, especially in organizations, whether it's corporate sector, the private sector, the civil service, or even if you're talking about industries, the various industries in Malaysia. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Now, you want to talk about SMEs, Doc, provide advice for small and medium-sized businesses on how they can promote mental health despite limited resources or budget. Some are doing well, some come up with ideas because they're working with young people and they've got young people there and they've got really good ideas.
Yeah.
But for those of them who don't have the resources, what can they do?
Okay, there's a lot of NGOs out there that talk about mental health. Okay, there's also MOH who give you resources on mental health. So raise the level of awareness. Yes, one part we are looking into productivity, performance, we need to increase our revenue, but what is all this without your people?
Right.
Right? That is one.
So you must acknowledge that your people are your assets.
Yes.
They are an asset, and you really have to use that as a diving board to work on all the other things. Yeah.
And just to add on, right? Sometimes you can see employer take advantage of an employee, or employee take advantage of an employer, and sometimes there's a gap of miscommunication. Understanding each other. So another way that we can address this or look into this, have a personality assessment.
Right. Right.
Because when we talk about trust, right? An individual who has social preference, their trust is, I can share anything with you. I can talk, and you are here with me. That's when we talk about trust, right? But if someone comes from the analytical preference, right, from the thinking part, trust meaning you give me the numbers, you perform, therefore I trust you. Okay, so imagine if you are in the management, right? You are, and then for you, trust meaning coming from analytical, but your employee is coming from social.
Yeah. So you're talking about KPIs. So So what you're saying is, correct me if I'm wrong here. So if an employee starts by saying, okay, these are your numbers, this is the KPI you're meant to reach. If you give me the numbers, if you come up with X amount of dollars, then there's a trust.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like that.
I know.
Okay.
Because sometimes the employee can provide, right? But then the way, the process of getting it will be different than you.
Right.
So you need to address it. So when you understand the personality, you understand what will be the preference. And that's where we meet in between.
Right.
Rather than, I have to pull you or I have to push you, it takes a lot of effort.
Right.
And that's where it, creates the burnout. It creates the miscommunication.
So I guess you've got a list of things that you want to share with us with regards to SMEs and people are just starting off to think about mental well-being at work and little things that they can do. Walk us through this short list of yours.
Okay, have clear boundaries, right? You need to make sure you have clear boundaries. Anything that you need to do or you need to address it later, put it out there, right? Because part of burnout is where people bring home their work, okay, and disrupt their family life. So you need to have clear boundaries, you need to have good communication, okay? Create a supportive culture. Okay? Even though it's difficult to talk to you, I cannot address this, but I'm supportive. Okay? So there's many areas of looking at it. So we're just going to look into this, right?
Boundaries, create a supportive culture, which means come hell or high water, even if there's so much toxic at work, there must be support.
Yes.
Yeah, there must be support, and there also must be boundaries. Okay, so there's boundaries, be supportive, what else?
Okay, support system. You need to have a good support system, right? When we talk, we have...
Be supportive, have a support system.
Yes.
Right.
We have sports club.
Okay.
We have all these, clubs. But when it comes to support, that's what is lacking. Because support in terms of physical, but what about supporting coming from emotional and psychological part, right?
Right.
So we need to have good support, all right? And then promote self-care activities. Before you start work in the morning, maybe you can do like 5 minutes stretching exercise.
Yeah, but some people be like, oh, you don't want why do we do exercise? But it works?
It works. It
Right.
works. Okay? If you have like this system around your office, every 45 minutes, 1 hour, just ring a bell.
Yeah.
Stretch.
Okay.
Stand up. Go and do your work.
Right. So every day before work, make sure everyone gets together, whether they like it or not, whether they're whinging or griping or saying, complaining, make sure everyone does a little bit. And this really works.
It works.
Yeah,
It
and
works.
these are small things that you can start with.
Yes, and you don't need to pay a lot of money to do this. You just have someone in the department do the exercise, right?
Yeah. So I've got a message that's come through. Wouldn't that be useless? In the morning, get together, exercise. Then the afternoon, everyone's waiting to stab each other with a knife because it's a toxic environment. So how does that change a toxic environment?
Okay.
And I've got about 1 minute left.
Okay. That's where another part is like, always have good communication, no matter how difficult. So I call it courageous conversation. No matter how difficult the conversation, you need to voice it out.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And that's where the boundary
So
comes
if
in.
management says, okay, if he's going to talk a lot about this, I'm going to get you for that. No, that's another conversation we have.
Yeah.
So there's just so much to talk about. See, so much to talk about with regards to mental health at work, and I'm sure colleagues of mine in other media houses will take some time to do this too. But we'll definitely come back and talk about this at some other stage or some other point when we can get you
Yes.
back in the studios.
Yes.
In the meantime, thank you very much for staying with us. Dr. Sangeeta, it was a pleasure and an honor having you here.
Thank you, thank you.
Stay with us on Bernama TV. We'll be having more of these shows coming your way. Also, for the news, that's going to be coming up soon. More updates for Bernama. Always go to bernama.com. I'm Jared Ratnam. Thank you for staying with us right here on The Nation.